All right, this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts brought to you by Sovereign Extracts. You can check them out for some great CBD oils, as well as a variety of cartridges, THC, CBD, hybrid options as well. But also make sure you're checking out USG Canada, putting out great apparel for boxers, MMA fighters, and for fans alike. And we've got a great guest on today's show, an individual who has held that NSPW Maritime Championships, a myriad of other belts as well, repping that East Coast strong style. I'm talking to Dylan Davis. How's your day going so far, man?
So far, so good, man. I got up early in the morning and I went to the gym and got that stuff all out of the way. So now I'm just pretty much taking it easy at home and yeah.
No, that's good to hear. You're having a solid day all around there, man. But no, it's been an interesting run so far. It seems in the career here. Like it seems like it's been a long road since Jason Burry at the age of 16 there. Like what do you remember with like the lead up with wrestling training into that first matchup? Because I imagine that was a seminal moment.
Yeah, so I think at that point I was like maybe 16, and that was 2006, I believe. I was upstairs at the St. John's curling club. Um, Up until that point, I would help out with the ring, and I would more or less volunteer as a ref. So I would like train for a bit. I think we spent entire summer one in someone's yard in the old ring that was used for Atomic Wrestling Entertainment. It was like an old boxing ring. It was, all wood, no give it all to it. So we spent 2 months every day for hours just bumping in this horrible ring. So, what led to that was there was this show where they had a match announced where someone never came. So, Burry, looked at me and said, "Well, you're here." So, which led to me getting squashed in, I think, 2 minutes. I think it was. I don't know. Yeah. Probably a minute and a half. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but an interesting sort of transition because that could have easily have been just like a one-off sort of thing, like fill in to the spot there. But then you very much started with time filling out into the role of being a full-time wrestler and then not being a referee there. So like, what about that like struck you as like I'm gonna build beyond this? Like, why wasn't it just a one-off like do the job kind of situation? And like, how did it parlay into where you're at now?
I think I always like for as long as I can remember I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. And like I think back then that was the like earliest intro into like wrestling. But I believe it was like 2005. I believe Mainstream Wrestling had a show also at the Remax Center, which is the curling club, and they held a seminar. You pay like I think it was like $40, and you train with Kowboy, Mike Hughes, and the Boston Bad Boy Jason Rumble. So the only two lads from here to do it was myself and Matt Wheeler, the Maverick, Matt Wheeler. So we went there and more or less Mike Hughes gave us the real raw intro into what pro wrestling actually is, because up to that point like we just knew wrestling as like the local scene, which is all fun and games when you look at it from the like real point of view from what Mike Hughes gave us. You know what I mean? So, that day I was like, okay, this is like a tough like sport. So now I would watch wrestling, online, like videos wherever I could. And then I just knew that was something that I wanted to like do, no matter what. Like obstacles came my way. It was definitely a dream that I was like I had to make happen. So I just kept at it. I ref for years. I think I did like rumbles here and there, like small matches that are very easy, tag stuff or whatever it is. And then for I think it was like 2008. My good friend Mike Barrington, he opened up Republic Pro Wrestling, and the booker at the time was Steve Clark, and he gave me this new gimmick because up to the point I was just using my my real name, and I was just like I was I was a nobody, no character, right? So he gave me this name, Dylan Davis, and he said, all right, we gotta find you a new gimmick, So okay, the next day I look on Facebook and it was announced as Hip Hop Dylan Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that was the intro to the reintro to trying to turn the local scene into something more, because it definitely had a lot of potential for growth. So I think that was the point where everyone made the big move from the small local events to when we all wanted more. Fast forward to 2010, Legend City Wrestling. That's when that came aboard. And that's when it got I guess from my point of view more real, because this has been promoted at the time. Dan Bjork on Steve Clark brought in guys like Mike Hughes and Rhino, and names that helped not only myself grow but the other guys here as well. So before working for Dan and Steve, we had I guess a little bit of heat. So of course we had to fix that before anything happened. So before the first date for the first big tour in the fall of 2010, Steve Clark said to me, if you want to hold your spot here, you got to work your ass off. You got to hustle. You got to bust your ass. And I think since that day, that's been the one thing that's been embedded into my head is if I want to be one of the best, I got to keep busting my ass. If I get lazy, or if I stop the main focus, I'm going to lose all my steam. So it's very rare to have me not to do anything. I'm always sort of on the go, I guess you could say. So yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and just it's interesting the development, everything like that. You mentioned Republic Pro Wrestling in there. It seemed like you had some good experiences wrestling, the Magnus, now known as Don Martini, there, and then you were getting in the work at Junctions.
Oh yeah. Back then, for me, I was lucky enough to work guys like Magnus, Andrew Hawk and Scott Zero at the time. So, back then I think it was Marty Mackerel. So. These guys were in my eyes, three of the very best guys on the island at the time. You know what I mean? So, and me back then, I was very new. So, for me to be here now today is definitely because of guys like them at the start that gave me a chance to I guess do this crazy wrestling thing. You know what I mean? And help me learn and not just be cold or mean towards a new guy. They actually came in and said, "All right, here's what we're gonna do," and they gave me something, don't they? Help me out,
Yeah, it seems like you're a real student of the game, trying to learn from, the guys that came before and whatnot. Cowboy Mike Hughes and Tyson Dukes, for instance, seem like individuals that you've really been able to, learn a lot from, spend a lot of time under the proverbial learning trees there.
Yeah, for sure. I always say, it's very important to, not only respect the game and respect sport, but respect those who came before you, because you'll always learn. You'll never learn everything in wrestling. So for me, whenever I can, I try and pick the brain of somebody who's done who's done a lot more than me. Not only because of that, because it's just the whole thing about respecting as well. You know what I mean? Me being from here, from Newfoundland, we never had the opportunities that most people have in the mainland, up away, because there's no schools here. So for people here, it's whenever the only time I would learn anything new was when we had a tour and Dan would bring in guys like Dukes, Colt, Rhino, or even as recent now as Travis Canning with New, bringing in Eugene, Dreamer, Joey Mercury, all this stuff. Every seminar, I did every single one. There's not one I missed, because those things are the most important things that some people just definitely take for granted, because you don't learn much being stuck here on the island, which is another reason why I moved to Halifax for 4.5 years. It's just, I always look for more. I always try to be better and better every day, right? So Yeah, it's just me. It's just how I am. It goes like back to like earlier saying, I was told that if you want to hold your spot, you gotta keep, you gotta bust your ass. So that's the mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know why people wouldn't take up the whole seminar thing more often and whatnot. But one of those that I saw a while back was you said you got to learn from Kevin Nash a little bit. Like, what was the circumstances of that, and how did that all come about there? Because that seems pretty interesting.
Yeah. So big Kev. So I was at the gym. He was flying in for a big show we were holding up in Torbay. And we had Bret Hart was there as well, so it was like Rhino and stuff. So I'm at the gym, working out. I train back, whatever, and then I'm just done. And then one of the guys who was helping out with the rides said, "Hey, I'm here with Kevin Nash. He wants to work out." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. This is cool." So I said, "All right, call me when you're here." So they come to the gym. They were there, and then like half an hour, maybe less. And I go out, and it's my first time meeting, Kevin Nash. I'm still very new, So here I am. It's Kevin Nash. Like, come on, right? Yeah. So it's like Wolfpack, man. Come on. So I was like, don't do sweet. Don't do. Anyways, but so I go to the van. I say, "Hi, Kev. I'm so and so," and he gets out of the van. He's seems kind of like cranky, or tired. I'm like, okay, I get it. So, walking into the gym, I go, "So, how was your flight?" He goes, "Ugh," and I was like, "Yep, fair enough."
Yeah.
Yeah. So just going to the gym, and now, I'm definitely not a very tall person. If you've seen any of my matches, you've seen me before, so I'm not very tall. I haven't grown since 2006, I think. So, or probably, yeah. So, the scene me and Kev walked in the gym together is more like a scene from the movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Devito. Yeah. So we're sitting in the gym together, working out, and I think we're there for like probably 2.5 hours. I just like picked his brain the whole time. I was like, "Hey man, guess what?" I was like, "I remember in '93 you were down to the Memorial Stadium for a house show." And he's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, and he told me how he almost got stuck here on the ferry and stuff. I was like, "Man, this is cool. Like this is cool stuff." So it's just like picked his brain the whole time. And then, at the show, he was just a really cool guy. Like just super, super cool. He was hilarious. Like just really like I think one of my favorite, one of the favorite guys that was here that I've met, because he he's Kevin Nash. He's kind of like a big deal, and he was very like respectful and cool, and like treated everyone with respect, like they were one of the boys. So that was like for me to see that back then when I was brand new was huge, because you know what I mean. I was still again very, very, very green.
Yeah, and discussing seminars and certain things like that. Like I'd seen you had a post like circa like summer 2017 there, where you said your first wrestling seminar was over 10 years ago for mainstream wrestling and whatnot. And you were one of only 2 people to kind of show up there, but then 10 years after the fact, it's like all of a sudden you're contending for the MSW heavyweight championship. Like that must have been a really cool like full circle kind of moment, like just something that underscores the progression and everything.
Yeah, it just, and you know what, it's one thing I sat back and was like, wow, this is like full circle. You know what I mean? You ask some guys and they'll say, "Oh well, MSW is not really a big company. It doesn't really mean anything." I'm like, well, in that perspective, yes, but looking at it from my point of view, from somebody. So, like from that, so me and Meals, we paid to do the whole thing. We traded with Mike Hughes, right? Little side stories. The following year, promoter Devin Chittick, he's coming back to St. John's. And he asked me, "Hey, do you want to help me poster the town for the event? And we'll give you a spot on the card." So I print posters. I poster all over St. John's, everywhere. And then, the day of the show came, and Devin sort of never had a spot for me. So, me being a young scamp, I was kind of like, all right, I was sort of like bitter about it, you know what I mean? Because whatever. So, came down to that. Like the MSW was they had the like new ownership that I got along with very well, but they still booked Devin. So you know, Devin's got a bad reputation. Not to get into details, but I wanted him out. So it came down to me and Devin Chittick in this match somewhere in New Brunswick. I can't remember I think it was not Mary Machine, but somewhere in New Brunswick. It came down to me and Devin, and I was like, this is my full circle moment right here. You know what I mean? And then fast forward to when I won the belt. To me, it was like, to me it was a big deal. To others, probably small potatoes, but yeah, going back to it, definitely a full circle moment for me, for sure. Without the big rant in between. Full circle, for sure.
Well, it seems like it has localized importance too, because it seems like your dad was a follower of the local wrestling scene. So it seems like it's something that was like, underpinned even in your upbringing there, from what I could even tell in my research.
Yeah, so my dad was definitely a big influence on me wrestling, being a fan of wrestling and everything in between, because it would go from wrestling figures. We would legit rent every pay-per-view. We would drive into it was Cable 9, I think, or something like that at the time, and we'd rent this big old box each month, right? And we sit around and we have snacks and we watch the wrestling and stuff. In between matches, we wrestle and stuff, and all this cool stuff. And my dad was also into the gym as well. He was, when I was a kid, my dad was huge. So I grew up, with my dad. It's watching him go to the gym, and him and my mom are divorced. So when I go there on the weekends, I'd walk in and I see he'd have Nitro on TV or Thunder. So the earliest wrestling for me would be Benoit and stuff, and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. These are guys that, this is why my style is very almost like them, with a modern twist to it. You know what I'm saying? So it's my earliest memories of when I was a kid with my dad is wrestling, right? And so yeah, he's definitely, and even now to this day, any event I do in St. John's, or he is always the one that's behind the merch table. He's the guy that's selling my t-shirts and hats and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So he's definitely my biggest supporter. Well, I guess I can't see his biggest because I think him and my mom are tied.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's yeah.
No, but a very rich sort of scene out where you're at too. But in doing my research, I've also seen you travel, to Ontario for certain places like, Greek Town Wrestling, but also working Quebec and certain places like that. What kind of utility does that have? Are there different, I guess, psychology considerations or certain stylistic tells of some of the workers out there? What do you learn from, I guess, traveling all throughout the nation? Are there differences that are compartmentalized in any kind of way?
Oh yeah, 110%. I find for style in wrestling around here in Newfoundland, it's very old school. Good versus bad. It's very basic. I shouldn't say basic. It's a very poor, badly word choice, but old school. Same with in the Maritimes, old school, but I find lately it's got a new twist to it where it's this new school now. So but so for me to go from Newfoundland to the Maritimes, then to Quebec for NSPW, their talent is unreal. It is just levels above what I was. It was unreal. So for me to be able to travel there on a regular, I think at one point I was going there every 3 weeks, and working guys like Marco Estrada, Matt Angel, Travis Toxic, I can go on and on. I think I worked everybody on the roster except for Kevin Blanchard, which sucks because that match was booked before this COVID-19 stuff happened, to be honest. So my time in the last 4.5 years traveling to Ontario and Quebec and stuff, it's been just constant learning for me, growth. It's just been unreal. To watch my matches from 4 years ago to now, it blows my mind. My style's different. Just like being put there, like for example, we were doing a show in Rimouski, Quebec. I believe it was I think 2 years ago. And I think I was set to wrestle a young guy. I think it was Yan or Dylan. We were 2 hours from the town, and then I get a text that I'm working Marco Estrada in the main event. So I think it was like 1,500 people there or more. You know what I mean? And if you've seen Marco's style, Marco is incredible. He's a great wrestler. He's very hard-hitting, quick style, fast-paced, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So, those moments where I was legit taken and thrown out of my comfort zone are the moments that help me grow the most. And those are the moments that I look for on a regular basis. It's like those scary moments where you don't feel like you're ready, but you got to get ready. You know what I mean?
And it's cool because it seems like as much as we've been talking about your growth, like how you were initially, hip-hop Dylan Davis, and there's been, subsequent character permutations, it seems like a similar case with, someone like, even Lil Blay, for instance, like someone who you've worked with a fair bit over the years. Like, I mean, you've worked with him, with different gimmicks of his too, like when he was Cody Blade and different things like that, and just seems like someone you have a great connectivity with all around. Like, I think you guys were riding together when he'd seen his name on the marquee when it said Lil Blay's house party, and that kind of seemed like a big moment.
Oh yeah, so me and Blay are very, very, very close. So last summer and year, me and him were roommates. You know what I mean? So we trained together. We did everything. It was all, we did it all together. This is where we came up with the Maritime's Most Wanted kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. At the time in the maritime scene, much like, unfortunately there was a bit of heat and beef drama going around. So we chose just stand up, be ourselves, and just work for the wrestling and not the drama and the BS. So we chose to be Maritime's Most Wanted, and we said we're going to be the busiest people in this territory this year. So myself, Blaze, Sabotage, Burke, and Emily, one of the best refs in Canada, Emily Parker, we took it upon ourselves to travel as much as we could. And we put in the miles last year. You wouldn't believe it. We all over. It's incredible. And that's why that crew, MMW, Maritime's Most Wanted, I see them as a family. You know what I mean? I think we all grew together as one big team, and because of that, I think it helped each of us, grow as ourselves as well. So yeah, going back to it, Blay and I have this bond where he's like my son. he's like my son now. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I think he's a great talent. He's a great wrestler. Hopefully we get to see him again very soon, because I know he's missing the wrestling way more than I am, so, which is a lot. So
yeah, I mean, great stuff. I mean, it's in the sense of I presume you guys can also learn a lot from each other just on the road trips and stuff like that. How important is it to have that time in between and just to be constantly trying to absorb information on the road and stuff like that? Because that seems like an invaluable part of the learning curve.
Oh yeah, so for example, these long drives, as you may know, a long drive is always exciting until after the first hour. When you're bored, right? So, for me, I always tried to get in the car with somebody who had experience and a lot, because if they have a lot of experience, they have a lot to say. So you get in the car and you say, okay, how about this? And you pick their brain. For example, there's many guys out there that want to see wrestling grow and want to help you learn. So we after we did a big show at the casino in New Brunswick, and Moncton, and then we drove. It was myself, Marcus Burke, and the Pillars. So it was like Tyson Dukes, Tarek, and Sebastian Suave. Sebastian Suave, he runs Smash Wrestling, and the whole time he was just constant knowledge and just helpful advice for the full drive from New Brunswick to Quebec. Such a great dude. Like, I could sit there with him for hours and just talk shop. You know what I mean? Like, guys like him, we need more guys like him in wrestling because, like I said, great dude, super nice, down to earth, and definitely wants to see wrestling grow. So, you know, great dude. But yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure, man. And I've also noticed, like, beyond the singles work too, you've had different, tag team permutations and stuff like that, like being part of Dubai's and stuff like that, and like with Matt Wheeler and whatnot. Like, I like Dubai's too, like a little nod to the, Newfoundland origins and all that stuff. So, I mean, what's it like working in like a tag team kind of capacity as opposed to working like a singles kind of role? I mean, still performing, but I imagine it maybe scratches a different kind of creative itch a little bit.
Yeah, like for going from like one-on-one to like tag team was definitely like definitely a new like a learning curve for me as well to learn tag team psychology. Lucky enough, again, we had a chance to work guys like Kicking and Stomping, TDT, and then we had this big angle with Sabotage, which led to actually a main event ladder match in Halifax. So for us to get the main event spot was again it was one of those things that was a big deal for us. But some may see it as again small potatoes. You know what I mean? So for me to be doing the tag team stuff, it gave me a chance to learn. Again, another aspect of like pro wrestling, that's the like tag team stuff. You know what I mean? It gave me a chance to work with guys again, like I mentioned earlier, TDT and like Kicking and Stomping and stuff, which allows again us me to learn and also like make new friends because so like. Again, I think we did a tag team for probably a year and a half, maybe, right? And then I think myself and Ed, Max Power, he was busy with like he has a family and is like working stuff. So he missed some shows, so it just came time for us to just, like sort of part ways. So. We had our, he turned his back on me the one show. We had our one pull-off match, and then that was it, right? And then I just went on my way. Shortly after, it was when I won the maritime title, which is when, which I think that was the plan. Like, this is why I think me and him sort of like went our different ways because I think, they wanted me to be on my own for a while. So yeah, and it's been, that led to him doing his thing, and me still doing the Newfoundland thing, but I came back with a different hat, different coat, different, not as goofy or funny. So, but yeah, going back to the, tag team wrestling was definitely something new to me, and I couldn't have asked for better people to work with in a year and a half than Sabotage, Justin Newhook, and Matt Connors. Those guys really, took care of us that year.
Yeah, and it seemed like the Buys were kicking it at Bear River a little bit, Bear River First Nation Cultural Center. How cool is it to play or perform at certain venues like that? Because to me, that reminds me a lot of like the Tony Condello Death Tour kind of things, just in that kind of sense. And it just always seems like the fanfare for certain shows like that can be really great just by virtue of maybe not as much entertainment coming through. So do you have any distinct memories of like certain shows like that?
Yeah, so we've done, I believe, 2 tours back. It was with Legend City Wrestling, we did tours of Labrador. So we would drive, from St. John's to Labrador. So our first tour, it turned out that myself and John Scarler, we had to ride in the back of the U-Haul in the rain truck. So they had cots in the back for us. So we're okay, whatever. We get in the back, and we fall asleep. Something happens, I guess. I think one of the vans they rented had a flat tire, so we pull over, we open the door, and myself and John and everything in the back of the truck for the first half is covered in dust, like a thick blanket of dust. And this is ridiculous. So my first memory of that whole tour, but in a nutshell, long story short, those Labrador tours were the Newfoundland death tours. Like, it was just constant, like, just bad luck. I believe one of the tours, maybe it was 3 tours, but I believe one of the tours it was with Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it was a time we were a lot of ice. So what had happened was the ferry, which was backed up for a few days with ice, had a lineup of people waiting to get on it. So what happened was they didn't have space for, I guess, one of our carloads, which involved, Hacksaw was in it, and the guys, I guess the veterans, they were the guys who were in that first. So it left Dan, myself, both Brandon Hines, Matt Wheeler, Tyler Marsh, stuck in Blanc-Sablon, Quebec. So it's a legit ghost town. We're at this hotel, and I swear to God, it was a haunted hotel. There was like nobody there. Really weird, creepy. So Dan's going to, find us a room, and then we noticed behind the hotel it's like pond with like swans. And then we're looking, and then Wheels goes, "That'd be crazy if those swans turned right now and chased us." And with that, the swans, there's 4 of them. They turn their head and they come at us. They come at us. So
oh, no.
I think Tyler, I think all of us, except for myself, and Finn, they piled into a phone booth until they ran away. I have a photo of this goose somewhere in my phone, and the guys ran in the phone booth. I gotta find it. But anyways, yeah. So we're stuck there, and we're stuck there for like 2 days after that. And then finally we get home, and but those are my 2 distinct memories of Labrador. That and just like, just like it was not, the juice was not worth the squeeze, if I can say that. You know what I mean? But that being said, it was definitely a good learning experience because it was a different crowd, different atmosphere, and a real taste of like how harsh wrestling and the road can be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems like one would learn a lot from different moments like that, just certain intestinal fortitude and things of that nature. But seeing different people you've worked here, I mean, really interesting. Like, I remember you put a tweet out a while ago where you're talking about first seeing, Big Mike in Ring of Honor and just kind of like gravitating towards his style there, and then getting to work him as part of that Standing 8 tournament that UCW did in conjunction with NSPW. What was that moment like? I imagine that was a really cool sort of instance for you, and it seems like there's been some other cases too, like working with like, Stu Grayson and Evil Uno from the Dark Order, so that stuff must be cool. But specific with the Big Mike instance, like, what was that moment like?
Oh man, that was, for me, that was nerve-wracking. So like, I remember Mike from like watching him like ROH years ago. I remember just being like, man, this guy, he's something different. He's huge, and then I was just a big fan of his work. You know what I mean? So when they announced a tournament, they were going to have somebody from each province as the best in Canada, and they said, you're going to represent Newfoundland. That moment alone for me I was just beyond. I was so proud because that's all I want to do is put home on the map. Like, there's not many guys from here that make it. No one knows we exist here. So like, I want to be the best, but I want people to know where I'm from. But go back to that, like with Mike, like again, someone I respected. So you know, nerve-wracking, nervous, focused. Like my training in the gym went up. Like I just intensified everything. I was like, all right, I gotta be ready. And fun fact, the match with him was when I debuted the new Moondog look. That's what I decided to lose the tights and like just be Moondog. So but the day of the show, I more or less she flights. Sometimes with the flight, he was late and stuff. And in the match, I just got like my ass kicked. Like I forgot some stuff, and he just like I think at one point I went to like duck and took an elbow in the head, and I watched the match back, and it's like a minute and a half of stuff that I do not remember doing. So I was like, whoa. So yeah. Definitely a test. I know. Like I think Blay worked Mike Bailey before us, and I remember the guys were very safe with us, very safe. But I remember they pushed us to our limits in the best possible way. I sat back after the match and after Blay, I'm like, "Hey man, you dead?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Me too, man." But it was like a moment because Marcus Burke believes in us as like two of the best, two of the best in the area. So I think he was proud to see us hold our own. Like, of course, we never won the matches, but we held our own against like two of the very best wrestlers, not only Canada, but the world. You know what I mean? So going back, hard-hitting match. But again, you know what? A test that needed to happen to show me that side of pro wrestling. You know what I mean? The hard-hitting style. I say East Coast strong style, and that was the ultimate taste of here's the strong style, pal. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
You know what? One of my favorite matches, and I definitely would love to do it again.
Yeah, a great worker and a guy I was fortunate enough to see wrestle in Oshawa in the very early goings and all that. But you mentioned the Moondogs look there, which I thought was cool, and that articulates the Newfoundland history too, just like the first Newfoundlander to get to WWF. Of course, talking about Sailor White, a former WWF tag team champion, with the Moondogs there. So, I mean, how much of that informed the look that you're doing right now? Do you see yourself as part of this greater Newfoundland lineage of wrestlers and stuff like that? Because it seems like this gimmick is oriented to kind of what we were talking about before, where it's you get the great parts of maybe some of the older psychology from say the 80s, but a confluence of mixing it in with the modern kind of stuff. So can you kind of talk about that, just the homage to Sailor White and just channeling it through what you're doing?
Yeah, so it started off as paying respects to him and his look, and then it transpired to the idea of pro wrestling is very wrestling wants a certain image. There's a certain projected expectation of what a wrestler should look like, right? And there's never somebody that's unorthodox or uncommon or very different, right? And I'm thinking okay, well, Moondog. What's a Moondog? It just it's something that no one's ever seen before. It's someone that's I guess pro wrestling's anti-pro wrestler, more or less. You know what I mean? So for me, the ripped jeans, the look, it's blue collar versus everybody kind of deal. Blue collar versus wrestling, and I just during this COVID stuff, I actually started working on a boat fishing. So we go out on the water and stuff for weeks on end. So that just helped me like transpire this new character, this new mindset, ruthless, just like So I just kept adding like layers and layers and layers, and it's finally just turned into like now. What started off as an homage to Sailor White is now I'm taking it and putting my own flow to it, being this more like the modern day Moondog. So like back in the day, that the Moondog's very savage, didn't the drool and the stuff, blah blah. With me, I'm gonna be a little bit more, what's the word? I don't know. But anyway, going back to it, yeah. I feel like the Moondog name should be something that people should remember, because it's not just Sailor White; it's others too as well. And I think nowadays, again, like I said, wrestling is a lot of the same thing, just rehashed. There's no one that stands out as unorthodox and different. And I think the Moondog gimmick and what you're going to see from me in the future, it's going to be something that pro wrestling's never seen ever before. So I'm stoked to push this thing, keep pushing the envelope, and just show everyone what the new Moondog thing is.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, man. And I usually, when I interview people, like to get a sense of like what music they generally are into, like training wise. It seems like you're pretty eclectic in that regard. Like you seem to enjoy Alan Doyle certain times, like Playboy Cardi, like Parkway Drive, ASAP Ferg. Kind of seems to depend on the mood, from what I can tell. Like, so what are the, I guess, go-to genres or perhaps artists that you gravitate towards for training music?
So yeah, I'm definitely like I'm definitely a bit of everything. I just turn on Spotify and I just I look up like today's hits or alternative rock or all this stuff. So like for me, it's like I don't know, a bit of everything, man. Like I train now. I just go to a playlist. Like I think today, especially this whole week, I'm looking up stoner rock and. Yeah, I remember like when I first like trained, like I used to listen to Down a lot. I was like, oh yeah, stoner rock. So like I just put on this list now of stoner rock and just bands I've never heard before, but I just loved the sound. But a little bit of everything, and it's obvious that I like everything except country. And you know what? I turned 31 this year, and I start to like country. It's kind of weird. It's freaking me out. I don't know what's going on, but I find myself doing housework and singing country. I don't know what's going on. I don't know, but but yeah, I like everything. You know what? If it sounds good, I likes it.
Yeah, I was gonna say a bit of a departure from the mid 2000s time in Freddie Youngblood's backyard jamming Slipknot there, right?
Oh yeah. Before I forget, yeah. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, music's great for that, just like really putting you back into a certain memory and stuff like that. And I had to ask about this because I wasn't entirely sure, because it looked like one of those things where like maybe the guy looked like you and you were making a joke, but you'd had something on Instagram a while ago where you were saying, oh, that time I escaped prison on season 4 of Republic of Doyle. Was that a guy that just looked like you, or was that you making a little cameo on the show?
That was me, yeah. So,
I figured, but I didn't want to presume, and then you'd be like, oh, yeah, well, it's just an April Fool's thing or whatever, That
was me. So we, this is when I worked at Good Life as a trainer. And one evening I was getting off work, and this lady who worked for casting for Doyle just gave me her card and said, hey, we need, inmates for this season, so... I'm sure it's awesome. I've acted before. We actually, I don't know if you ever heard the movie. I'm sure you have. We filmed a movie here in Newfoundland, Beatdown. It's pretty much based on like wrestling. So from that experience, I knew acting is sweet. Dude, it's amazing. First of all, the craft service table is the best part of acting. But going back to Doyle, the whole Doyle thing is. So I show up. And again, we sign in, and we go to the green room. We put on our jumpsuits and sneakers, and the scene we're shooting is we're more or less just escaping jail. So the scene was they blew a hole in the wall, and we just run down the hall. The cool part was I shot this scene with Gore Pinsent. So, to shoot a scene with someone like him, who's a famous Canadian actor, was pretty cool for that. So, yeah, the scene was we just on that bench, Doyle walked down, we gave him a look, a salty look. When we get the sound goes off, we just run down the hall and I give a guy a shove, and that was my stunt. My stunt work was giving the guy a shove.
No, I just thought to ask because, like you mentioned, you were featured there with like the main star of the show and everything, and I'm like, oh, that's a great look. That must have been a cool experience. Did you get like a bunch of like people like shouting you out or like getting the clip isolated and like they'll send you a little video like, oh, I see you on TV? Like, was there a lot of that kind of stuff going on at the time?
Oh yeah. Because when it was first new, I got a bunch. And this is around the same time when NTV would still play LCW. So I think just one day I think it was like 7 or 8 like texts in a row from like Doyle and NTV. So I was like, oh, cool. But yeah, again, it's like those little small things that like a lad from St. John's, Newfoundland, probably would never do except it wasn't for like wrestling, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I thought it was an interesting sort of thing, and I appreciate you giving that backstory as to how that came about there. But you've been really great with your time, man, and I want to be mindful of that. So is there anything you'd like to sort of add as a parting thought as we're wrapping up here? Maybe a shout out to the Pro Wrestling Tees store. I noticed you got a few shirts on there.
Oh yeah, so Pro Wrestling Tees, I do have some shirts up there. The link to that is actually in my Instagram at Buddy Wrestles. Also, I'm trying to build my followers on the old Twitter. So if you can go into there, Buddy Wrestles, follow me, would be great. So but going back, I have some shirts. I have some new shirts out as well, which I will have up on Pro Wrestling Tees very soon. Or you can message me on Instagram and we can, figure it out. I've got a bunch of new stuff. I got pins, stickers, bracelets, hats, everything, all that stuff. Also, like a less known fact about me is I did recently move back home to Newfoundland with the intention to open up a new wrestling promotion here. As of right now, there's not much else I can say, but just know that we're myself and some really close pals of mine. We're gonna work to build something very special here in Newfoundland for the fans and all that stuff.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, an individual who's held NEW and UCW gold now getting ready to get a great new promotion started in Newfoundland. So I'm really excited to follow along with that, man. And just, really great getting to talk to Dylan Davis and get some career highlights and some insights on everything. Thanks for all the time and everything, man. Much appreciated. And best of luck with, the future promotion there. And just also enjoy the rest of your day as well.
Thanks, Dylan. You as well, man. Thanks so much.